had the luxury of overseeing, and that was a huge task, but a very successful task. So I am familiar with disaster preparedness and response. Today I have Colin Riddle and Gia from Martin County Emergency Management Section. These guys are the professionals, and I am glad that Colin is here to share his way, their way of dealing with disasters and being prepared for disasters. So I am also going to sit here and learn along with you folks, and we will create the best preparedness plan in Martin County, in my opinion. So enjoy. Thank you. Colin, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As Greg said, my name is Colin Riddle. I'm one of the emergency management coordinators with Martin County. We are a division of fire rescue. However, most of us are not firefighters. I came from a firefighting background originally. I was born and raised right here in Martin County. So I was here for 04. I've seen every storm since. So at one point I decided, let's try to get into this emergency management stuff, make the transition over from fire rescue. And I'm very glad that I made that decision because I can bring my operational knowledge now to the EOC and combine that with my local knowledge to hopefully make the county a little bit safer place if there was a disaster. So before I begin, we're going to quickly talk about what is emergency management. A lot of people don't know who we are. They think fire rescue, which, partially true. But everybody's familiar with FEMA, right? We've all heard that name before. So in emergency management, all disasters start and end locally. Now, somewhere in the between, the state might come in and support us. The federal agency, FEMA, might come in and support us. But at the end of the day, we are the first ones there and we are the last ones there. So we have the same roles and responsibilities, but we are dedicated to the county. So we have a quick video here. It shows you a little bit about what we do and explains who we are. And all these clips are taken within Martin County.
Emergency management handles much more than just hurricanes. Nuclear power plant incidents, severe thunderstorms, flooding, erosion, tornadoes, and wildfires are just a few of the threats we face year-round. Preparation is critical. Inside the Emergency Operations Center, we take action using state-of-the-art technology to prepare for, respond to, and recover from the worst disasters our community can face. We train, exercise, and work closely with community partners, state and federal agencies to stay ready from any hazard. Our team also trains staff to work in shelters, handle our Community Information Center hotline, and respond in the Emergency Operations Center. Our outreach trailer can double as a mobile command center and is deployed to large events around town. Additionally, we set up booths at smaller events and provide presentations to groups of community members where we provide important information regarding all the hazards and how to be prepared. Martin County has seen many disasters.
Fire rescue, what's your emergency?
And the risk for more is always there. We'll be there too.
Pretty good video if I do say so myself. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the disaster cycle. So in our role as emergency managers, we kind of look at it as blue skies versus gray skies. Blue skies, day like today, nothing going on, nothing to worry about. Suddenly something happens and we shift over to gray skies. So my blue skies role is logistics section chief. So anything that the county needs, whether that be more ambulances, staffing for shelters, medical supplies. I'm the one who kind of acquires all that stuff. Gia over here, she's our planning section. So she's the one who writes all of our plans. She sets our operational tempo, very important positions. So throughout the year, in blue skies particularly, we try to stay within mitigate and prepare. So throughout the year, as you saw in the video, we're doing mitigation work. And what that means is any kind of project that helps make the community more safe. So that might include dredging canals, adding seawalls, hardening buildings, so maybe adding generators, things of that nature. And then we have our preparedness. So a lot of what we do with preparedness is public outreach. We do a lot of trainings with other county departments to make sure that they are prepared for when something happens. So we try to stay between these two, but every once in a while, Mother Nature or technology or civil unrest throws us a curve and boom, something happens. Then we move into response. How long do you think response normally takes? No guesses? Maybe, depending on what it is, sure. For hurricane response time, I'm not going to say this is the most accurate number, but probably about 72 hours. It's the part that gets the most notoriety, most publicity. Everybody's excited to respond, but that's only a very short portion of what we do. So we respond and then we immediately go into recovery. Gia, how long does recovery take? Correct me if I'm wrong, but they just closed out Katrina last year or 2024?
Yeah, I believe it was in 2024 we closed out Katrina. Hermine is still not closed, and that one I think we're coming close to like 15 years. So
now I say we, that's not here in Martin County. That's, at the federal level, but that involves us still. So even after a hurricane for months, weeks, up to years, we are still working on that recovery, trying to find folks temporary or permanent housing, trying to connect people to resources, rebuild infrastructure, including roads, businesses, buildings, helping community residents, if your home was impacted, helping you try to navigate that FEMA assistance program. So recovery is a huge portion of what we do. It's not the most glamorous, I would say, but it is probably the most important, I would definitely say. So let's talk about mitigation. So first point is trimming trees. And now this only pertains to your household. We'll get into your own personal preparedness in a minute, but when we're talking about mitigation, trimming trees, now that's something that can be done year round. You can do it during hurricane season. That's absolutely fine. My only word of advice would be to know when your bulk pickup is, because you don't want to have a bunch of tree limbs hanging outside your house right up before a storm. So make sure you know when that bulk pickup is and you time your tree trimming accordingly. Reinforcing roof, windows, and doors. So hurricane stuff, hurricane-rated windows, hurricane-rated garage doors. If you're interested in metal roofs, I think your community has barrel tile. Is that correct? Concrete tile. So that's probably the safest option, in my opinion. I'm not a roofer, but from what we've been told by the division and some of the wind models, that the barrel tile roofs are more secure. Has anybody heard of the My Safe Florida Home Grant? Awesome. This is something I really like to share. I found out about 8 months ago when my mother-in-law applied for it, and it's a really good program. So if you go to mysafeflorida.com, what you can do is fill out a request for a wind mitigation survey. So the state will send somebody to your house. They will look it over. They're going to look at your windows, your doors, your roof tie downs, things of that nature. And they're going to generate a report. And it might say, hey, your roof is good. You don't need anything there, but you could use impact windows. So from there, you select from a list of contractors. It can be your contractor of choice. They just have to be registered with Florida Department of Professional Business Development. I think that's the name of it. So you select your contractor. You go ahead and you get the work done. And what happens is, so you'll pay for that up front, but at the end, as long as your home qualifies, you'll get $10,000 check from the state. So the homes that would apply, I'm not an expert on it. I know every home is different, but the general guidelines from what I understand is insured for under $700,000 and has to be built before 2009, and it has to be your primary residence with a homestead exemption. So that's a free $10,000 program to get impact resistant windows, doors, roof tie downs. It's not, I would say, well-known, not as well-known as it should be, but it's an awesome resource for you all as homeowners. Talking a little bit about insurance coverage. We recommend that you look over your policy prior to hurricane season and just know some of the differences between, flooding versus wind-driven rain. That's a big hot button topic with insurance policies. Also, if you want to make changes to your insurance policy, if you want to add coverage or add flood insurance, make any of those changes, you cannot do that if there's a storm. So it has to be 30 days prior. So something to look out for. And securing your items outside. So whether that be patio equipment, potted plants, any decor, making sure that you bring any item inside that's not secure. If there's a gust of wind, a tornado, whatever, that's going to pick up that debris and turn it into projectiles. So we always recommend securing things. And we'll talk a little bit about some ways you can do that towards the end of the presentation. Sorry, I think I'm just a little out of range.
You want me to stand over there?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to preparedness. So this is talking about more about preparing yourself, your family. So knowing your risk. Now, everybody's family makeup looks differently. I have a young child at home. Maybe you care for an elderly family member. Maybe somebody with disabilities lives with you. Your risk depends on the makeup of your family. So you need to calculate that and look into it when you're creating your plan. Also, knowing your risk ties into building a kit. So we talked about maybe somebody has medical needs. So what would be something they would need in their kit that might differ from yours? Prescriptions, absolutely. That's the biggest one, making sure that you have prescriptions. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the items in your kit, but it's important to have a kit prior to hurricane season. Now, did we know that there is now a tax exemption on hurricane supplies? Yep. So as of this year, I'll have to get you the full list of what qualifies, but it's no longer just a week-long period. Now it's 365. So if you need to purchase things, that would be a good time to do it. One of the things that I like to tell people is that, you don't have to go out and buy everything in the kit all at once. That could be pretty expensive. So maybe next time you're at Publix, if you see canned goods, hey, buy one, get one, maybe grab an extra. If battery's on sale, great item to grab. I like to think of it as, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you just grab a little bit here and there, and that helps kind of, I guess, mitigate some of that financial burden. We'll talk a little bit about staying informed, but the county has a lot of great sources of information for you. I left some cards. I don't know where they ended up. They're in the back. You can grab on your way out, but that's perfect. That's our Alert Martin program. So that's going to be our official emergency notification services. So prior to a hurricane, we'll send out notifications for things like shelter openings, sandbag locations, evacuation notices. It's a great resource to have. And then we'll talk a little bit about getting involved post-storm. So knowing your risk. So not only does that include knowing your family, but also includes, what about my house? What around me? Where do I live? What kind of risk am I being exposed to? So in Martin County, we break it up into 3 different categories. We have natural risk, like things like hurricanes, technological risk, like a cyber attack, and societal risk. That could be civil disturbances and things of that nature. Now, we use a somewhat complicated mathematical formula to take these risks and assess their threat, their vulnerability, their impact, their probability, to come up with a number, and then we rate them on this scale. So these are just some of the things that we kind of look out for and plan for as emergency management. I know some of it gets a little bit confusing. Like I was asking our director, invasive species? Why is that so high? But think about it. Pepper trees, lionfish, old world ferns, all those little curly tail lizards you see. It's not that they're exactly the most dangerous thing, but they're everywhere. So we have a lot of them. But we plan for all of these things, and we plan based on their risk and probability. So things like extreme temperatures, that's something that we have to look out for. Even cold weather. So 40 degrees or below for more than 4 hours, Martin County opens cold weather shelters. This year we opened, I think, 7 shelters, or 7 different times. We sheltered over 150 people. It's the most we've ever had, but it's some of those things that you don't think about that do impact the county that we have to prepare for. So knowing your risk in your evacuation zone. So this map up here, that's our storm surge evacuation zones. Now I know that this community, I already checked, we're good. We're not in a storm surge zone. That doesn't mean that it might affect your plans as far as disasters. What do we see right in this area? What roads are going to be through there? Canner Highway, maybe? So although you don't live in a storm surge zone, if you were going to evacuate, it might be useful to understand that, hey, some of these major roads might be impacted by storm surge. Also, some of the barrier roads around you, I know this map's kind of zoomed out, but some of those roads are also prone to flooding. So just something to be aware of. When it comes to evacuations, we issue them based on storm surge zones. So the red zone, flood zone AB, first to go. I know this probably doesn't impact anybody in here, but when we issue any kind of evacuation warning, mobile and manufactured homes are always included regardless of where they're located. think we're good on that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this hurricane season. Does anybody know what the predictions look like or what some of the talk has been? 7, 15? So from the National Weather Service, our partners in Melbourne, they have a 55% confidence rating that this will be a below normal year. I'm just gonna, do one of those. We say that and, it does make us comfortable. But the thing that we like to try to stress to the public in all of our outreach is that it only takes one storm. It doesn't matter if it's anticipated to be a slow year. If you get one Category 5 in Martin County, doesn't matter. Hurricane Andrew. Anybody remember Hurricane Andrew? Slow year. So that just goes to show that we can't be complacent just because we think, hey, we're not going to really expect a whole lot. We've already had one named storm actually as of right now in the Gulf of Mexico. So it can always happen. Now, our peak time of year for storms, that's going to be October, November, December. Excuse me, September, October, November. That's peak hurricane season. So we're still early on, but that doesn't mean that things can't happen, right? So it's just something to be aware of. Sorry, I know this slideshow is kind of built for everybody, so I know you're not in our EPZ zone, but we do have a nuclear power plant within Martin County, or excuse me, within St. Lucie, but the impacts could be felt in Martin County, especially Jensen Beach. So that is one of the things that we prepare for. I know it's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to think about the reality of the situation, but we do have planning in place for that. We're good. All right, so let's talk about building a kit. Clothes, food and water. Does anybody know how much food and water we recommend? 3 days. Now you might be thinking, how much water is 3 days? 1 gallon per person per day. 3 days is kind of enough to get you safe. But if there's a big storm and businesses are closed, Walmart's closed, Publix is wiped out, we recommend you having up to a week is preferable, but 3 days at a minimum. So some kind of communication, whether it be phones, maybe walkie-talkies, important documents, that's a big one. Few different ways that you can go about that. Obviously, paper copies, totally fine, but we also recommend that you keep a digital copy somewhere, whether that be on external hard drive, Google Cloud service, just somewhere that you can access it, maybe if you're not right there next to them. Cash is important. Cash is king. With internet down, your tap to pay is not going to work. Card readers aren't going to work. ATMs are going to be down. Back to cash. So it's important to bring some cash with you if you plan to evacuate or for post-storm. Toys are another big one. I see this a lot in our shelters where people show up, they don't have toys for their kids, and next thing you know, it's becoming like a daycare. And that doesn't include just children. What about your pets? They probably need some entertainment too. So bringing some toys with you, another good idea for your kit. Flashlights and batteries, your hygiene items. We talked a little bit about medication, trying to stock up before a storm. Now, if there is a federally declared disaster, there is a law that allows you to get more than your general prescription. I don't know the exact number, but you can get an advanced supply of that medication. I believe it's through CVS. Yeah. So important time to stock up on medication. And then your own entertainment, comfort items. This sounds silly. I love to play guitar, so I keep a little travel-sized guitar in my closet in my office. So if I'm stressed out, when we're locked in the EOC for a week, I just go find a closet, sit there, play a little bit. I feel better. So whatever that is for you, good idea. So talk about preparing and making a plan. So write down your plan, including where your meeting points are going to be, those important contact numbers. The most important thing I think, and where I see a lot of people fail, is not communicating and sharing that plan. So in the EOC, we have our Community Information Center. It's where you as residents can call and ask questions, report damages, things of that nature. We get a ton of phone calls saying, I can't get a hold of dad. I can't get a hold of, XYZ family member. And it's because they're safe. They evacuated somewhere else, but they didn't communicate that plan. So it's equally as important to have a plan, but also communicate that, especially if you have friends or loved ones outside of the immediate area. We talked a little bit about digitizing important documents, backing up your phone and computer. It's probably where most of those documents live if you're like me. And practice your plan. martin.fl.us/disaster. You'll find a PDF copy of the Road to Readiness. I apologize. I normally pass those out, but we're getting a new edition printed. Those should be out by like next week or so I can stop by and drop them off.
So we'll have that stuff available once Colin and his team has that stuff finalized. We'll have stuff right outside of the general. Yep.
Yeah, and within there's a whole list of like, if you're building a kit, there's a really long list of items. So, and it's a checklist too. So as you get stuff, you can kind of track what you got. So a lot more information there. So let's talk a little bit about sheltering. So my role is logistics. I also oversee our mass care, so our sheltering program. Here in Martin County, we have 10 shelters. 8 of them are general population. We have 1 pet-friendly shelter at Anderson Middle School, or excuse me, 1 special needs shelter at Anderson Middle School, and a pet-friendly shelter right here at Willoughby Learning Center, excuse me. Now, with that being said, it is pet-friendly, but you don't have to have a pet to go there. Anybody can go to that shelter. There's no pre-registration required for any of our shelters except for special needs. When it comes to special needs, you will go to the state's website and you will register there. And the Department of Health will call you, verify that you are, special needs, whether it be oxygen dependent, you have medication that requires refrigeration. Basically, you're electrically dependent for some reason. We will provide transport for special needs to our shelter. We will pick you up and drop you off. If you're in a wheelchair, you're bedbound, we have our fire rescue staff there ready to support you. I don't think this presentation covers it, but I do want to touch a little bit on evacuation. So I think one of the big misconceptions that I see is that people expect to evacuate hundreds of miles away, right? That doesn't need to be the case. We're talking tens of miles. Now, I know in Martin County, it's a little bit difficult for us to go tens of miles because, here on the Treasure Coast, chances are if there's a hurricane, we're all going to be impacted. So if you do decide to go, westward to Highlands County, Glades County, Okeechobee County, one thing I'd like to keep in mind is that there's not a whole lot of hotels in that area. So it's better to make that decision earlier versus later to make sure that you do have somewhere to go. Also, anticipate the time it's going to take to get there. We don't have major highways between those counties, and most of them are just 2-lane country roads. So anticipate there being some traffic if you do choose to evacuate. Now, I'm not saying you can't go hundreds of miles. That's totally up to you. But expect there to be some traffic delays. And keep in mind, too, the storm track can always change. So you might have evacuated somewhere that is now in the path and your home is okay. So just keep that in mind if you do choose to evacuate. Next slide, please. I guess I got a little bit ahead of myself. Special needs. Yeah, mobility issues, oxygen dependency. We can administer medication, health monitoring. Yeah, I mentioned you must be registered for the shelter and that transportation will be provided. Talk about staying informed. So we have a bunch of different ways to stay informed. Starting with our Alert Martin program, there's a few different ways you can register for that. You can follow the link here, or you can just simply text the word Alert Martin to 888-777, and that'll automatically enroll you in emergency notifications. Typically from emergency management, you'll see things like shelters opening, sandbag locations, boil water notices, things of that nature. That program is shared by the county, though, so the sheriff's office uses it as well. So let's say they notice a particular crime spree in a neighborhood. They can send a message saying, hey, Willoughby Golf Club, we've noticed a lot of vehicle burglaries. Remember to lock your doors, things of that nature. Public Works uses it for boil water notices. It's a really great program. The only thing you don't receive from us as far as emergency management or even countywide are going to be those texts that say tornado watch, tornado warnings. So those alerts, National Weather Service is the only person with authority to send those out. So those do not come from us, but we talk to them and then we send out our own county level guidance based on that. So if we know, hey, we're going to be under hurricane watch in 48 hours, okay, we're going to stop with the sandbag operations 24 hours ahead of time. We'll send you the notification letting you know. And then you'll get another one saying, okay, now we're going to transition to open up shelters. So that's just kind of a great way to get plugged into what's going on. We also have our social media accounts, Facebook and Instagram. Our partners with NPR 88.9 FM. The county also has their own program, Channel 99. And the Community Information Center, that's what I talked about a little bit earlier. It's a great number to save, by the way. You can call and ask any questions about the storm. If you need even before or after the storm. If you need debris removal, you can call that in. Let's say you're driving down the road, you see down power lines or a down tree, you can call that in. So we rely very heavily on the public because for us, we're locked in the EOC. We get there on a Monday morning, it might be 5 or 6 days before we leave. So our first responders and our community, you're the eyes and ears. We rely on the information that you provide us. So if you see something or if you have issues, I highly encourage you to save that number, give us a call. So getting involved, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier when we talked about securing loose items. Assist with preparedness. So maybe you have seasonal neighbors, maybe they can't lift certain amounts. Great opportunity to help secure some of those items for them. Checking on your neighbors after an event, huge. Our big push this year, we did a whole campaign with WPTV and WPBF about neighbors helping neighbors. So that would be, securing those items, looking out for each other, helping clear that yard debris. As emergency management, we come from a team of 6. There's 165,000 residents. So as communities become more self-sufficient and self-resilient, it helps get back to normalcy quickly. So we encourage neighbors to try to help each other out. Also looking at volunteering. So here in Martin County, we have a great organization called MIND. It is an acronym for Martin Interagency Network for Disasters. That's why we call it MIND. Great group of nonprofits. We have Salvation Army, Red Cross, House of Hope, United Way, Southern Baptist Disaster Relief. If you're interested in volunteering, any of those organizations would be a great one to donate your time to. And also monetary donations. So United Way, they head our emergency support function 15, which is volunteers and donations. So what happens after a storm is they stand up their website to receive monetary donations specifically for disaster related. So it doesn't go into United Way's pool of money. It goes directly towards helping disaster survivors. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And responding. So follow your plan and adjust as necessary. Again, storm might change paths. You might need to say, okay, maybe now I want to go to a shelter. Maybe we should evacuate. So just adjust as needed. Listen for official updates. This is something that we've been really trying to push a lot lately is, not to name any names, but those armchair meteorologists. They might have good information at the time they received it, but if you're seeing that post 12 hours later, 24 hours later, that information's already outdated. I'll tell you, my dad is the worst one about this because he's texting me like, oh, I already know what's going on. I've already seen it. And I'm like, Dad, you shared that post from 48 hours ago. That was a tropical storm, and now it's a Category 3. So we always encourage our residents and visitors to turn to local, trusted sources of media, whether that be people on TV. The National Weather Service is who we get all of our information from as emergency management, but they all kind of work closely together. So we take that information, and that's what guides the activities and actions that we take as a county. Following official mandates, so whether that be curfews, evacuation orders, don't go sightseeing, don't go to the beaches. That was always Sheriff Snyder's, big plea to the community. And just be safe, especially if you're going out and you're trying to clean up after the storm. Be aware that, hey, power lines may be down. Sharp debris, if you have nails from roofs. Use common sense. I would say one of the areas that I could probably improve on would be knowing when to call a professional. I see a tree down in my backyard. I'm the first guy to grab a chainsaw. And then I'm like, maybe I should pay a guy to do this. So I would say know your limits and stay in your lane. So now we're into recovery. So let's talk about some of the do's. Stay inside until the storm completely passes. No reason to be sightseeing. I know it's tempting, but please stay inside. Check your surrounding area for damages. Make contact with friends and family. Let them know, hey, I'm okay. Don't have to worry about me. Listen to local media and emergency officials. Check on your neighbors. Some of the don'ts. If you're evacuated, return if not allowed. That's really geared towards Barrier Island if they have to lock down the bridges. So go sightseeing around the neighborhood. Gia and I were just talking a little bit about this. So I lived in Daytona Beach during Hurricane Milton, and we had like 23 inches of rain dropped on us over like 12 hours. I had 4 feet of water in my house. And next thing you know, guys driving a giant Jeep doing 20 miles an hour, just pushing all that water into already flooded houses. So For safety reasons, for care for others in their situations, better just to stay inside. Drink or prepare food with tap water. So this kind of ties back to that alert Martin I mentioned. So if there is a boil water notice, you will have known already not to do that, but go ahead and try not to anyway. Grill or operate generators indoors. That's a big one that we see with fire rescue a lot. People trying to grill in their patios or their garages with the door closed, or they want to keep the generator close by. So when it runs out of gas in the middle of the night, they don't have to go out 20 feet away from the house for generators. Very, very important. Another thing that I like to touch on, I came from fire rescue background. If you see linemen working in your area and you have a generator plugged into your house, like you have a transfer switch, very, very important to turn that off, because while linemen might have the lines down, your generator is back feeding those lines. So they might go to start working, and it unfortunately happens every year where linemen end up passing away because they were working on lines that were supposed to be down, but because of the generator, they were still alive. So if you see them in your area, just do them a favor, keep them turned off. And going into floodwaters, a lot of bacteria, simply put, especially if you have kids. I know I was guilty of it in 2004. All I wanted to do was boogie board in the front yard. A lot of bacteria, a lot of germs, sewage, not a good combo. Please avoid them. So getting into recovery, this is probably where we get the most questions. So a few different options. Talked about insurance policies. That's always your best bet. And you won't beat insurance. These other three that we're going to talk about are there for the idea to supplement maybe what insurance doesn't cover, but these are not going to replace an insurance policy. We do have our Mind group that I mentioned. That's where those donations go. So they are there to help folks. It is like need-based, financially based. So if you're low income, you're obviously going to get help first. They're not there to rebuild your home, but let's say you need an air conditioning unit, or you need a window immediately replaced, or immediate tarping or something of your roof. More like temporary fixes to help you get back into your home. We do have FEMA assistance. I am by no means an expert on FEMA assistance, to be honest with you all. There's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of different programs. But from what I've been told is that if you applied for every FEMA program and you got accepted to every one, which I've never heard of anybody doing, it's about $40,000. So again, it doesn't replace your insurance coverage. What it does is it helps you get back into your home. It's not going to help you replace your home. And then we have the Small Business Administration. This is an interesting one that I learned about during Hurricane Milton, was that, yes, it is the Small Business Administration. However, during disasters, they open it up to anybody. So anybody can apply for an SBA loan. There is a limit on how much you can apply for and what those funds can be used towards. Like, I know you can't remodel your home, but it's a great option for a low interest loan to, get your home back to where it was. But I'd say the one big takeaway is that none of these are a replacement for your insurance policy. So I just recommend it. I'm not a salesman, but it's a good idea to have. Are you prepared? So with some of the information we talked about today, if you want to scan this QR code, we have a short little survey to find out how prepared you are. So I'll give you guys, give you 2 minutes, and you can just assess your own answers. Just kind of take some self-reflection time. I didn't get 100% on it, so don't feel bad. Everybody have a chance to scan it if they wanted to?
And while you're filling that out, something I would add on the public or individual assistance side for grant funding and things like that with SBA for recovery. So SBA, you're going to have to pay back because it is a loan. With FEMA, one of the individual assistance programs, first of all, don't give them any information that they're not asking you for. They are looking for reasons not to give you money, generally speaking. So if you fill out the information for FEMA, there is a program that, generally speaking, is a $700 automatic. And like Colin said, it's meant to be supplemental, not rebuilding. Just a thought.
I think we're good. We can move on. So here's our contact information. Feel free to give us a call and email. Again, I'll push out some of those flyers we don't have quite yet to you guys once we have those in stock. I'll drop them off if you want to stop by. And I think is there one more slide? Is that it? All right. Do we have any questions? I know we usually get a lot. Yes, sir.
I understand that during evacuation times, especially, the roads change, everything changes, and they say to have a map that you look at. Where do you get these? Say a map of Martin County.
I'm glad you asked. I have maps. I will drop those off with Greg. They are 2024, I believe, so a little bit dated, but yeah, we have printed copies of those. Any other questions? Got another? Yeah.
One more thing I'd like for you to repeat. I didn't know if I understood it properly, but after the storm, if there are people in the neighborhood working, you should turn your generator off.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, because what happens is, it's one thing if you're like, let's say you have a generator and you're plugging it directly into your outlet, like, you're plugging your refrigerator in. But if it's tied into the house, what can happen is through your breaker or through your electrical meter, it can backflow the lines. So from FPNL's perspective, those lines are down. There's nothing to worry about. And then something happens, they go, start working on it, and the generators have backfed that line. It's the equivalent of them being turned on. And I would actually refer that if you have questions about your specific generator, like if you have a whole home generator, I would talk to whoever installed it just to make sure. Maybe you can run it with your breaker off and it will only feed the house. But unfortunately, it does happen every year. Any other questions? All right. Well, that's all I got. Our contact information is up here. So if you think of anything that I missed or if you want to get more information, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to provide it.
Meeting you.
You as well.
All right.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you. Again, grab one of these stuff. It's good stuff, folks.
Water in our driveway was like 1/3 of our driveway. And storm sewer, well, they feed into the lake, whatever it takes, bubble up and roots. They messed it. Yeah, well, let's hope.